Most people think that a routine prenatal appointment is just another checkbox on a long list of medical formalities. For Lucia Soares, it was supposed to be exactly that. An ordinary morning in São Paulo, taking her daughter Sofia to finally see her little brother on the ultrasound screen. It was her second pregnancy, no complications, nothing unusual. She had even made it a small mother-daughter event, dressing Sofia in her favorite yellow dress and braiding her curly hair with pastel ribbons. They sat in the waiting room of the hospital's obstetrics wing, surrounded by posters of smiling babies and cheerful quotes. Lucia held her daughter's hand, asking gently if she'd prefer a little brother or sister. "A brother," Sofia said without hesitation, "but only if he doesn't cry all the time." It was the kind of moment parents cherish, simple, candid, filled with quiet joy. Lucia smiled, thinking how lucky she was. But that smile wouldn't last. The moment they entered the exam room, things started to shift. The technician, Carlos Mendes, a man in his early 40s with a steady hand and kind demeanor, began the ultrasound like any other. Sofia was asked to sit in a corner where she could see the monitor. What appeared on the screen, however, changed everything. Sofia's expression turned from curiosity to sheer terror. "Mommy," she whispered, backing away. "That's not a baby. That's not a person." Lucia initially laughed, assuming her daughter was making up some childish story to avoid sharing attention. But then she saw Carlos freeze, his eyes fixed on the monitor. The smile fell off his face. He adjusted the probe, clicked a few buttons, zoomed in, and stayed silent. Lucia's heart began to race. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tightening. Carlos didn't answer. He just kept staring. The black and white blur on the screen pulsed unnaturally, and for a second, Lucia could swear the image turned its head. Sofia clutched her chest and cried, "He looked at me. Mommy." He opened his eyes and looked right at me. That's when Carlos abruptly stood and said, "I need to call the head of obstetrics." Lucia felt her throat go dry. In less than a minute, the door opened, and in walked a man with a stern expression and gray-streaked hair. His badge read, Dr. Jorge Moreira, Chief of Obstetrics. He didn't smile. He just nodded at Carlos, looked at the monitor, and his brow furrowed in concern. He exchanged a few whispered words with Carlos, then turned to Lucia with a tone of forced calm. "We'd like you to stay for 24 hours of observation. We need to run more tests." Lucia didn't understand. She had come for a simple ultrasound, not an extended hospital stay. "Is there something wrong with the baby?" she asked, gripping Sofia's hand tightly, trying to keep her own fear from spilling over. Dr. Moreira hesitated, then said something vague about cranial measurements and limb proportions. "The skull appears slightly enlarged and the limbs don't align with expected growth stages," he explained, avoiding eye contact. Lucia looked at Carlos, hoping for reassurance, but he couldn't meet her gaze. Her mind spiraled. Was her baby sick, deformed? Why wouldn't they just tell her the truth? She demanded to speak with her husband, João. Moreira nodded, saying they had already contacted him and that he was on his way. Lucia sat back on the exam table, dazed, holding Sofia close. The little girl's body was trembling. "Mommy," she whispered, "he doesn't want to be here. He told me." Lucia kissed her forehead and said nothing. Every second stretched like an eternity. The soft beeping of machines and hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence. And Lucia, though surrounded by people, had never felt so alone. When João arrived nearly an hour later, his face was pale and his words few. He sat beside Lucia without meeting her eyes. Something in him felt distant, off. "What's going on?" she asked him directly, her tone sharper than before. "Why have you been acting so strange this week? I saw you on the phone. Don't lie to me." João shifted uncomfortably, muttering that it was just work stress. But Lucia wasn't convinced. Sofia, still curled next to her, blurted out, "The baby isn't human. There's something wrong." The words made the air thick with unease. João stood up abruptly and stepped into the hallway. Lucia followed him with Sofia in her arms, stopping just behind the partially open door. There, in the shadowy corridor, she heard him whispering into his phone. "She's starting to suspect. I won't be able to keep her here much longer. We said no complications, but this is getting out of hand." Lucia froze, the blood draining from her face. Her instincts screamed that something much darker was happening, something she hadn't been allowed to see until now. That night, Lucia didn't sleep. She lay in the narrow hospital bed with Sofia curled beside her. the child's small body seeking warmth and comfort she herself could barely offer. Her mind churned in loops, unable to land on a single thought without spiraling into panic. Something inside her had shifted, some primal awareness that she wasn't just a patient anymore. She was a target. As Sophia breathed softly in her arms, Lucia whispered to the child growing inside her, "If something is wrong, I'll do everything I can to protect you. I swear." Outside the room, a nurse passed by, her footsteps soft and slow. Lucia caught a glimpse of the name tag, Beatriz Henriquez. When Beatriz noticed Lucia watching, she paused at the door and said in a quiet voice, "If you need someone to talk to tonight, I'll be here. Just ask." Lucia managed a small nod, unable to say anything more. Inside, she was drowning in fear, rage, and a confusion so profound that it made her question whether she was still in control of her own body, of her own child's future. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hospital window, but it did little to erase the tension from the night before. Lucia sat up in bed, staring into a cup of cold herbal tea, her hands resting on her abdomen. João walked in carrying a paper bag, trying to look cheerful. "I brought breakfast. Your favorite croissant?" he said, as if that could somehow undo the chaos. Lucia didn't look up. "I don't want food. I want answers." João hesitated. "Lucia, don't complicate things. It's not as serious as you're making it out to be." But she'd had enough. "Then why did you say things will go to hell on the phone last night? And who were you talking to? What did you agree to?" Her voice cracked. João sat heavily in a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I don't even know where to begin," he muttered. Lucia didn't let him off the hook. "Then let me start," she snapped. "What the hell did you do to our baby?" The silence that followed was suffocating. João let out a slow, heavy breath, like a man about to confess to a crime he couldn't take back. "There's a research program," he said finally. "It's called Project Genesis. It's run by a company called Genialab. They've developed genetic editing for embryos, removing hereditary diseases, enhancing immunity, increasing intelligence." Lucia shot up from the bed, eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" João stood quickly, hands outstretched as if to calm her. "Please let me explain. I just wanted to give our child a better future. No illness, no risks." "Without my consent?" she shouted. "You let them experiment on our baby without even telling me?" João lowered his head. "I signed the contract before you even knew you were pregnant." Lucia staggered back as if slapped. The betrayal hit like a tidal wave. Her voice cracked under the weight of disbelief and fury. "You had no right. None." Sophia stirred on the bed, confused and frightened by the shouting. "Mommy, don't cry," she said, barely awake. Lucia cradled her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "It's nothing, my love. Mommy just needs some rest." Later that morning, Dr. Moreira returned, accompanied by a full medical team. They performed a series of invasive tests, including an amniocentesis to map the baby's full genome. Lucia lay motionless on the examination table, staring at the ceiling like a prisoner in her own body. Carlos, the ultrasound technician, remained the only person in the room who still looked remotely human. As he wiped the gel from her abdomen, he leaned in and whispered, "I don't agree with what they're doing, but I was told not to interfere." Lucia turned her face toward him. "Do you have children?" she asked softly. Carlos looked away. "No, but I have a little sister. If someone ever did this to her without our mom's consent, I think I'd kill them." That night, while Sophia colored quietly in the corner of the hospital room with a set of pencils the staff had given her, Lucia sat beside her, lost in thought. "What are you drawing, honey?" she asked. "The baby," Sophia replied. But the image she handed her mother made Lucia's heart drop. A crude sketch of a figure with 3 eyes, elongated arms, and skin the color of ash. "Why does the baby look like that?" she asked. "Because I saw him yesterday," Sophia said. "He looked at me and said, 'I'm not like you.'" The next morning, Dr. Moreira walked into the room flanked by 2 men in tailored suits. One was younger, hair slicked back, exuding corporate polish. The other was older, with a cold, calculating gaze that made Lucia's stomach tighten. "Lucia," Dr. Moreira began, "this is Mr. Sebastião Pereira, a representative from Genialab, and his colleague, Rafael Tavares, a bioengineer." Pereira extended his hand with a rehearsed smile. "It's a pleasure, Mrs. Soares." Lucia didn't shake it. "I don't need to meet you. I never agreed to be part of any experiment." Pereira's smile tightened but didn't break. We understand your concerns, but this situation requires careful handling. Our priority is the safety of both mother and child. Safety? She snapped. You're destroying my son, and now you expect me to cooperate? Raphael stepped forward, his voice clinical. The fetus's genetic structure is responding within a range of acceptable deviations. Interrupting now would put both of you at risk. And continuing? Lucia asked, fists clenched. Requires ongoing monitoring. You would need to remain hospitalized, Moreira added, avoiding her eyes. You're patient 17, Pereira said, the first to show an unexpected reaction. If you collaborate, adjustments can still be made. That was the final straw. Lucia leapt from the bed, yelling, I'm not a lab rat. I never signed anything. You're breaking every law, every principle of human dignity. Pereira sighed, almost bored. Perhaps we'll speak again when you're calmer. Later that day, Beatriz Henriquez returned to Lucia's room, ostensibly to change her bandages. But as she closed the door, she leaned in close and whispered, I shouldn't say this, but I know someone who used to work on this project. He left for ethical reasons. His name is Dr. Miguel Rocha. He's in Curitiba now. If you want answers from someone who knows the truth and isn't afraid to speak, find him. Lucia stared at her, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, Beatriz. Thank you so much. Beatriz gave a small smile. I'm a woman too. I understand more than they think. That night, as Sofia slept, Lucia secretly reached out to a name she hadn't spoken in years. Helena Silva, an investigative journalist who had once exposed a major health scandal. She wrote, My name is Lucia Suarez. I'm being held at the Hospital de Clínicas in Curitiba. My husband signed a genetic editing contract for our baby without my consent. The company is Genia Lab. They are threatening me and my child. 10 minutes later, Helena replied, Send me every piece of evidence you have. I'm on my way. You can trust me. The following morning, Dr. Moreira entered the room looking more tense than usual. He carried a clipboard and spoke in a firm but detached tone. Lucia, we need you to sign a commitment form to continue treatment. If you refuse, the hospital won't be held responsible for any complications. Lucia narrowed her eyes. I want to speak to a lawyer. But before Moreira could respond, Pereira stepped in from the hallway, his voice sharp and commanding. That won't be necessary. We have legal grounds to keep you here for the baby's safety. Lucia stood her ground. I don't trust any of you. Pereira's gaze didn't waver. If you cause a scene, people will lose their jobs. 60% of this hospital is funded by Genia Lab. Don't make enemies you can't handle. Lucia said nothing, but her fists clenched until her knuckles turned white. Outside the door, Sofia sat drawing again, her little hands moving quietly over the paper. This time she drew a butterfly with torn wings emerging from a cracked cocoon. Mommy, she said when Lucia stepped out, I don't think the baby wants to stay here. Lucia kneeled in front of her and whispered, And Mommy doesn't either, my love. That same evening, Lucia spoke to Helena on the phone in hushed tones, trying to stay calm. It's me, the one who messaged you last night, she said. I'm close, Helena replied with certainty. I'm already near the hospital. What's your room number? 327, third floor maternity wing. But be careful, they're watching me constantly. Understood. Keep your phone on. I'll come through the employee entrance. I still have an old badge that works. Lucia hung up, her heart pounding. She looked over at Sofia, who was playing quietly in the corner. Who are you talking to, Mommy? The girl asked. A friend who's going to help us get out of here, Lucia replied, brushing a lock of hair from Sofia's face. 10 minutes later, a tall woman in a lab coat appeared at the door with a clipboard and a fake ID that read, Dr. Laura Martinson. But Lucia recognized her immediately, Helena Silva. Good morning, Helena said to the nurse outside. I'm here to check the patient's amniotic fluid levels. The nurse hesitated. She's under special watch. You'll need to log it in the system. Helena didn't blink. It'll take 3 minutes. I have direct orders from Dr. Moreira. The nurse relented with a sigh. Once the door closed, Helena removed her glasses and mask. It's me. Are you okay? Lucia exhaled in relief. Thank God you came. Helena moved quickly, pulling a small recorder and a micro camera from her coat pocket. We don't have much time, she said. I need to ask you a few questions. Please answer with as much detail as you can. Lucia nodded, her eyes flickering between the door and Helena's face. Sofia tugged gently on her mother's sleeve. Who is she, Mommy? She's someone good, sweetheart, Lucia said, running her fingers through the girl's hair. Someone who's going to help Mommy take you home. Helena knelt beside the bed, her voice low but intense. Your husband signed the agreement before you even knew about the pregnancy, right? Yes, Lucia replied. He said it was for our baby to be born perfect, but I didn't know. I never signed anything. And the company involved is Genialab? Yes, she answered, her voice shaking. They've sent people to threaten me. They even tried to make me sign more documents while I was sedated. One of them is named Sebastião Pereira. The other, Rafael Tavares. Helena scribbled notes quickly. Do you have any proof? Messages? Contracts? Lucia handed her the phone. I took screenshots of João's texts with Pereira. They're all here. Helena scanned through them, nodding. Good. This is what I need to blow this open. Lucia hesitated. They say if I leave now, the baby might be at risk. But if I stay, I have no control left. I'm scared. Helena placed her hand gently over Lucia's. I won't let them take you again. But to stop them, I need to tell the world what's happening to you. Are you ready for that? Lucia turned to look at Sophia, who was once again drawing quietly in the corner. The child was sketching a bird with torn wings struggling to fly from a broken nest. The metaphor hit Lucia like a wave. She turned back to Helena, her voice steadier than it had been in days. I'm ready. Just then, the door opened, and Beatrice stepped in with a tray of medication. She stopped cold at the sight of Helena. What's going on here? She asked. Wait, I know you. Lucia acted quickly. Beatrice, this is the journalist you told me to contact. This is Helena Silva. Beatrice let out a breath, nodding slowly. I thought so. The badge said Laura Martinson, but that name isn't on today's list. Helena gave her a quick smile. You're sharp, but now we need your help. We have to get out without Pereira or Moreira noticing. Beatrice glanced down the hallway and said, There's a service badge that gives access to the technical basement. From there you can exit through the back parking lot. No one checks that entrance. At around 11 p.m., Helena returned to the hospital's rear loading area with a white van bearing the logo of a fake cleaning service. Inside, Lucia had packed a cloth bag with a few clothes for Sophia, personal documents, printed screenshots, and a USB drive containing a secret recording of João's conversation with Dr. Moreira. Beatrice was already waiting in the technical sub-level, holding a maintenance access badge. She handed it to Helena and gave a firm nod. This entrance is barely monitored. No cameras, no guards at night. It's your best chance. Lucia crouched next to Sophia and whispered, We're going on a trip, okay? Not back to the old house. Somewhere safer, somewhere better. Sophia nodded quietly and said, The baby wants to go too. He's scared of this place. Lucia held her close, heart swelling with both love and fear. When they reached the van, Helena opened the back door. We're going to Curitiba, she said. There's a doctor there, Miguel Rocha. He used to work for Genialab but left when he saw how unethical the project was. If anyone can help, it's him. Lucia climbed in with Sophia in her arms. Anywhere is better than here. By 2 a.m., the van pulled up to a modest house on a quiet street in the outskirts of Curitiba. A thin man with glasses and a mug of coffee in hand waited at the door. His name was Miguel Rocha. You must be Lucia, he said with a warm but serious tone. Come in, please. Lucia stepped out of the van, cradling a sleepy Sophia on her shoulder, her eyes still swollen from the tears. Miguel held the door open as Helena followed with the bag. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The living room was humble but welcoming, and for the first time in days, Lucia didn't feel like prey. You've shown more courage than most people ever will, Miguel said gently. Now, let's focus on saving your baby. In the kitchen, Lucia sat clutching a steaming cup of tea she couldn't yet bring herself to sip. Helena was in the guest room calling her editor, alerting him that the key witness had been located. Miguel laid out the documents Lucia had brought and combed through them carefully. What they've done to you is inhumane, he said, his brow furrowed. I've seen similar cases, but yours is the first where the fetus survived this long. Miguel pulled a stamped Genialab document from the stack and placed it in front of Lucia. Do you know the code name for your baby in their system? He asked quietly. She shook her head. Subject 17. You're the 17th trial. 14 embryos failed to develop at all. 2 were born prematurely and died within hours. Yours is the only one still alive. Lucia's breath caught in her throat. They never told me that. I thought this was the first attempt. Miguel looked down, shaking his head. It's the first attempt on a human with supposedly formal consent. though that part was forged. But they've been running secret tests across South America for months. Lucia clenched her fists. Why me? Why my child? Miguel hesitated before answering. Because of João. He knew exactly how far this went. Lucia's voice turned sharp, trembling with fury. He didn't just sign the contract? Miguel sighed. He took money. A wire transfer, $300,000, from a shell company in Campinas called JB Solutions. I have a copy of the transaction. Lucia stood abruptly, her chair screeching across the floor. No, that can't be true. Miguel gently placed a hand over hers. I'm sorry, but it is. João isn't just an ignorant father. He's a collaborator. He sold your baby. Lucia collapsed into the chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Everything, the lies, the manipulation, the feeling that her body had been hijacked, it all made horrifying sense now. Helena walked in from the other room, took one look at her, and silently sat beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Miguel continued, Your baby's genome was altered specifically in the regions linked to neurological development. That's why the skull and limbs are showing abnormal growth. So he's going to be a monster? Lucia choked out the words, her voice barely audible. No, Miguel said firmly. The problem is the instability. If he continues receiving chemical stimuli from Genialab's treatments, it could trigger mutations. But if we allow the process to regulate itself naturally, I believe his body can stabilize. Helena's eyes lit up. You mean this could be a self-correcting anomaly? A biological response we've never documented before? Exactly, Miguel confirmed. I saw something similar in lab mice once, but no one dared let an embryo complete the process without interference. Lucia wiped her face, still shaking. Then what do I need to do? Stay away from anything connected to Genialab, Miguel instructed. No drugs, no hospitals tied to them. I'll monitor you personally every week, Helena added. We'll release the documents in phases, starting with the legal violations. When the public begins to react, we'll hit them with everything. Lucia squeezed Helena's hand. Aren't you afraid? Helena smiled softly. Of course. But truth doesn't need courage, just faith. That afternoon, Sophia woke from a nap and wandered into the kitchen still holding her yellow fox plushie. Mommy, she said in a small voice. I feel safe here. Lucia opened her arms and hugged her tightly. Me too, my love. And the baby is feeling better every minute. Sophia tilted her head. Mommy, I had a dream last night. The baby talked to me. He said, I'm not scared anymore. Mommy saved me. Lucia stood frozen for a moment, overcome by emotion. Miguel, watching from the hallway, said quietly, Maybe she senses things we can't explain. Children sometimes feel what science hasn't caught up with yet. That evening, Miguel and Helena stayed up reviewing every document, every data point Lucia had managed to gather. At one point, Miguel stopped, pointing to a section in the contract between Genialab and the hospital. Look at this, he said, tapping a fine print clause. Confidentiality level 4. It gives them the right to retain the patient in case of a medical emergency recognized by the research board. Helena's eyes narrowed. If she had stayed in São Paulo, they could have declared genetic instability and kept her detained indefinitely. Exactly, Miguel said. They've done it before. A woman in Belém was locked in for weeks. No family, no press. But this time, Helena whispered, she's not alone. She has a support network, doctors, journalists, and a child who's about to be born into resistance. Later that night, Lucia sat on the porch, eyes turned skyward, one hand resting over her belly as she felt the baby shift inside her. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, she whispered, but now I know, and I will never let them touch you again. Behind her, Sophia tiptoed out and wrapped her arms around her mother's back. Mommy, she said, when the baby comes out, can I teach him how to talk? Lucia smiled through tears. Of course, sweetheart. He's going to learn from the best big sister in the world. Sophia's eyes sparkled. I'll teach him not to be scared of strangers, or the dark. And if anyone tries to hurt you, I'll bite them. Lucia laughed, her voice breaking with both sorrow and joy. My brave little lioness. In the stillness of that house, there was finally room for hope to grow. Hope born from pain, secrets, and a mother's unshakable love. The next day, around noon, Lucia and Helena sat in Miguel's modest living room discussing what to do next. We can't let them force me again, Lucia said. But if we expose everything now, they'll spin the story to protect themselves. Helena nodded. You're right. But this isn't just your fight. It's the fight of every mother, every child, every person who believes in consent and ethics. Genialab has crossed every line. Now it's time for the world to see it. Lucia sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on her shoulders. But they have money, lawyers, they own half the system. And I'm just a mom. Helena reached across the table, her voice unwavering. Lucia, you're the only one who stood up. That makes you more than just a mom. You're a force. Lucia nodded slowly, feeling both overwhelmed and strangely empowered. Miguel stepped in from the kitchen with 2 steaming mugs. I agree with Helena. We start small. Release the evidence gradually. Let people digest it and get angry at their own pace. If we drop everything at once, it'll be easier for Genialab to discredit you. Lucia looked at the 2 of them, then at her daughter playing on the floor with her stuffed fox. Okay, she said. I'll do it. But you have to promise to protect Sophia and the baby. Helena placed a hand over hers. We promise. That night, as Lucia sat on the edge of the bed, brushing Sophia's hair, the little girl looked up and asked, Can the baby play dolls with me? He'll need to grow a little first. Lucia smiled. But yes, he'll play with you. Sophia looked serious. I'll teach him not to break them. I hate broken toys. Lucia laughed quietly, her heart swelling. Then he'll learn from the best sister. The next morning, Helena received a call from Beatriz in São Paulo. Someone tried to access your medical records at the hospital, she said. A group in black suits showed up claiming to be from a medical security firm. Lucia turned pale. They're still after me. Helena hung up and turned to Miguel and Lucia. We publish the first article tonight. Once it's out, they can't hide behind silence. Miguel nodded, already opening his laptop. I'll submit my findings to a medical ethics journal. This story is bigger than Brazil. The day ticked by slowly, each hour stretching with tension. That evening, the headline went live. Gene editing, the hidden truth behind Genialab's experiment on human embryos. Helena sat beside Lucia, reading the draft aloud. We have obtained exclusive access to a pregnant woman forced into a gene editing trial without her consent. The evidence shows not only ethical violations, but also significant medical risks to mother and child. Lucia closed her eyes, breathing in slowly. This is going to change everything, isn't it? Helena nodded. And you're not alone anymore. People will see what's happening. The next morning, Helena's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, activists, lawyers, all demanding more information. Miguel received emails from colleagues across South America. One message stood out. I've seen cases like patient 17. You're not alone. Let's bring this to light. Lucia sat quietly in a corner of Miguel's house, holding her belly and listening as Helena read through the growing list of journalists and medical professionals reaching out. They're finally paying attention, Helena said, scrolling through her phone. And many of them want to help. Miguel looked up from his laptop. A doctor in Rio reached out, said she's seen anomalies similar to your baby's case. She's willing to testify if needed. Lucia felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was carrying this alone. What about João? She asked softly. Miguel exchanged a glance with Helena before answering. He's been exposed. The money transfers, the messages. Banks are investigating him, and a subpoena is on the way. Helena added, He picked the wrong side, Lucia. Now he'll have to answer for it. Lucia nodded slowly, the knot in her chest loosening just a bit. Her hand instinctively moved over her belly. For months, fear had dominated every part of her life. But now, a flame of strength was starting to replace it. That night, Sophia made another drawing. This one showed their family, Lucia, Sophia, and João, holding hands, with a heart drawn over Lucia's stomach. The baby is the heart of our family, she said simply. Lucia took the paper with tears in her eyes. Yes, my love, he really is. The next morning, as she prepared breakfast in Miguel's modest kitchen, Helena received a call that made her face turn serious. It's Beatriz, she said quickly. She warned me that Genialab's tech team is trying to triangulate your location using mobile data. Lucia's hands began to tremble. How? How can they do that? Helena answered calmly but firmly. They're working with a telecom provider. Beatrice found out through another nurse. Genialab has a dedicated team tracking dissidents. Miguel stepped in, voice measured. We'll disable your phone, turn off GPS and mobile data. From now on, don't turn it on unless absolutely necessary. Lucia nodded, panic flickering in her eyes. She turned to look at Sophia, who sat at the table, quietly observing the adult's anxiety. "Mommy, why is everyone so worried?" she asked, her voice innocent but perceptive. Lucia pulled her into a tight embrace. "It's okay, darling. We're just trying to keep your baby brother safe." Around noon, Miguel received a short but chilling message from a trusted contact. "Be careful. They don't just want the data. They want the mother and the baby." Miguel showed the screen to Helena, who turned pale. "They've gone too far," she whispered. "They're breaking every boundary imaginable." She looked over at Lucia, who was holding Sophia close, her face a mixture of fear and defiance. "We have to protect her, at all costs." The pressure mounted with each passing hour. Helena began preparing the next set of documents for the upcoming article, while Miguel contacted a lawyer who specialized in patient rights and women's protection. "We need legal coverage before we move forward," Miguel insisted. "If Genialab escalates this any further, we need the law on our side." Lucia sat silently at the edge of the couch, arms wrapped around Sophia, who played quietly with her yellow fox plush. Her thoughts were a storm, equal parts fury, dread, and determination. She watched Helena typing furiously and Miguel making call after call, and she felt guilty for not doing more. "I can't just sit here," she said softly. "I need to help." Sophia looked up. "Mommy, can I help too?" Lucia smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Just by being here, you help more than you know." That night, Helena's phone buzzed nonstop with interview requests, but she rejected them all. "She's not ready," she told reporters. "Wait for the full story. It's coming." Miguel closed his laptop and looked at Lucia. "You need rest. You've already done more than anyone expected." Lucia shook her head. "I can't rest. All I think about is Sophia and the baby. They deserve justice." The next morning brought an unexpected breakthrough. Helena received a call from an anonymous source. "I worked at the Genialab lab in Fortaleza," the voice said. "They did the same tests on patient 17 there. I have documents, failure rates, concealed deaths, and falsified reports. I'll share everything, but you must guarantee my anonymity." Helena promised protection and provided a secure channel for the transfer. After the call, she turned to Lucia. "Another whistleblower. We're not alone anymore. They have a full archive of what Genialab's been hiding." Lucia nodded, but her face was pale. "What if they find us first?" she asked. Miguel sat beside her. "They won't. We're on the right track. We just have to hold on a little longer." That afternoon, Lucia rocked Sophia to sleep on a worn armchair. Helena was on her laptop analyzing the new files. "Miguel," she whispered, "this is worse than we thought. They forced gene acceleration in early development, but didn't build a safety valve. They wanted fast results, no matter the cost." Miguel's expression turned grave. "Without a termination switch, the baby might keep developing rapidly after birth. It's a biological time bomb." Lucia's heart sank. "So he'll never be normal?" Miguel looked into her eyes. "I can't promise anything, but I still believe the human body has an incredible ability to self-correct. If we let nature do its job, he might stabilize." That evening, as the stars emerged one by one in the quiet sky above Salvador, Lucia stood near the window, her hand resting over her belly, watching the world beyond with a strange mix of calm and dread. Every night brought new questions, new threats, but also a growing sense of purpose. Sophia tugged at her hand and asked, "Why are you sad, Mommy?" Lucia knelt down and held her close. "I'm just thinking about the baby. He's going to need me more than ever." Sophia looked up, her voice small but sure. "I need you too." Lucia smiled through tears and hugged her tighter. "And I'm right here, for both of you." Outside, a single bright star caught Lucia's eye. She stared at it for a long moment, breathing deeply. She didn't know what the coming weeks would bring, but she had made her choice. She would not run, she would not hide, and no matter what, she would protect her children with everything she had. That night, she fell asleep beside Sophia, one arm wrapped around her daughter, the other cradling the life inside her. Somewhere deep in her bones, she knew the fight was far from over, but she also knew she wouldn't face it alone anymore. A week after the first article's release, the small living room of Miguel's home was tense with anticipation. Lucia, Helena, and Miguel sat at the table, each with a stack of papers in front of them. "This is the second wave," Helena said, placing a thick folder on the table. "It shows Genialab's connection to failed trials across Latin America. Will it be enough to shut them down?" Lucia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet," Miguel replied, "but it's a crack in their armor, enough to make them scramble." Lucia wrapped her fingers around a lukewarm mug of tea, staring into it as if it could offer answers. What if this all backfires? What if the stress hurts the baby? Miguel placed a calming hand on her shoulder. Everything you're doing is for him, for Sofia, for yourself. You've come too far to stop now. Helena nodded in agreement. And you're not alone. Every step you take, we're walking with you. That night, as Lucia tucked Sofia into bed, her daughter showed her a new drawing. It was of a small boat in a stormy sea, with a woman holding a baby on board. The sky was dark, the waves crashing, but in one corner, a small patch of blue sky peeked through. Is this me? Lucia asked. Sofia nodded. You're taking him through the storm. Lucia kissed her forehead, fighting back tears. Then I'll never let go of the wheel. The next day, Miguel received a thick envelope with no return address, postmarked from Recife. Inside were pages of typewritten testimony from a former Genialab technician. The document was a bombshell. It detailed internal memos, deleted data logs, and explicit warnings ignored by upper management about the dangers of accelerated gene editing. They destroyed the data after I raised concerns. The letter read, they didn't care about consequences, only about results fast enough to impress investors. Miguel passed the documents to Helena and Lucia, his face grim. This is what we needed. It's undeniable proof. Helena didn't hesitate. I'll alert the newsroom. The story goes out tonight. Lucia took a deep breath. I'm ready. That night, as the story was published, the impact was immediate. Major news outlets picked it up. Advocacy groups held protests in São Paulo demanding an inquiry into Genialab. The backlash was fierce, but so was Genialab's response. They hired high-powered lawyers, released public statements denying all allegations, and threatened Helena and Lucia with defamation lawsuits. I expected this, Helena told Lucia, as they sat on the porch later that night. When people lash out like this, it means they're scared. Lucia trembled. But what if they silence us for good? Miguel joined them, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. You've already done what no one else dared. Don't let them scare you into stopping now. The following morning, Miguel received a message from an anonymous source. They know where you are. Move now. Without hesitation, he informed Helena and Lucia. We need to go. I have a friend in Salvador. He owns a small guest house near the beach. It's private and safe. Lucia hesitated. Sofia had just begun to feel settled, but there was no choice. 3 hours later, they were packed and ready, the van winding its way along the highway out of Curitiba. Helena drove. Lucia and Sofia sat in the back, the little girl hugging her fox plush, peeking out the window. Mommy, where are we going? Someplace safer, Lucia whispered, where the baby will be safe too. Sofia didn't ask anything else. She just leaned against her mother, trusting her completely. When they arrived, the guest house was tucked beneath a canopy of trees, with the ocean's sound in the distance. A kind older man greeted them. I'm Antonio. Miguel told me everything. You're safe here. Lucia bowed her head respectfully. Thank you, sir. This means everything. I used to be a journalist, he said. I know what truth is worth. You're welcome here as long as you need. That night, Lucia sat on the guest house porch, breathing in the salty air, one hand on her belly. I don't know what the future holds, she whispered to the stars, but I swear I'll do everything to keep you safe. The weeks that followed brought a kind of peace Lucia hadn't known in months. With Miguel's care and Helena's support, she regained her strength. Her color returned, her appetite improved, and most importantly, her spirit reignited. Sofia, ever adaptable, spent her days exploring the beach, collecting seashells, and drawing new pictures with growing joy. One sunny morning, Helena entered the small living room holding a car key and a calm smile. Today we're visiting Dr. Sandra Montero, she said. She's Miguel's oldest friend and one of the few obstetricians we can trust. Her clinic is safe. Lucia looked down at Sofia, who was curled up on the couch with her fox plush. I just want to know that he's okay, that my baby is healthy. Miguel, standing by the door, nodded. We'll know soon. At the clinic, Dr. Sandra welcomed them with open arms. I've heard a lot about you, Lucia. Come, let's get a look at this miracle baby. As Lucia lay back on the exam table, a familiar fear returned. The gel felt cold against her belly. Sandra's face grew serious as she scanned the monitor. Then her eyes widened, not with concern but with amazement. I don't believe it, she whispered. This baby, he's perfect. The abnormalities, they're gone. It's as if his body corrected itself. Tears streamed down Lucia's cheeks. "Are you sure?" she asked, gripping Helena's hand. "Are you absolutely sure?" Dr. Sandra nodded, her eyes still locked on the screen. "I saw the earlier scans. The deformities were real. But now, this is a healthy, full-term baby. It's extraordinary." Helena, overwhelmed, squeezed Lucia's hand tighter, her own face wet with tears. I told you something beautiful was going to come out of all this." Back at the guest house, Lucia held Sophia tightly. "He's okay," she whispered. "Your little brother is really okay." Sophia beamed. "I knew it, Mommy. He told me in a dream that he wasn't scared anymore." Miguel stood at the doorway, a gentle smile on his face. Sometimes a child's instincts are stronger than any science. Lucia looked out toward the ocean, the breeze in her hair, the scent of salt and peace in the air. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe, not just in survival, but in a future. That same night, Helena came to her with even more good news. The government is launching an official investigation. Genialab is under review. Pereira and Tavares have been arrested. Lucia exhaled, the relief crashing over her like a wave. "And João?" she asked softly. Helena nodded. "He's been summoned. He won't get away with what he did." Days later, Lucia received a call from Paulo Andrade, the attorney Miguel had contacted weeks before. "I've been working with the court on your case," he said, his tone firm but kind. "And I have good news. João confessed. He admitted to signing the agreement without your knowledge and accepting money in exchange for cooperation with Genialab. The court has ruled in your favor." Lucia felt a mix of relief and sadness. "What will happen to him?" she asked. "He's been convicted of ethical violations and endangering the health of others. He's lost all rights to practice medicine and faces a sentence for his role in the illegal experiments. But most importantly, your children are protected and your name is cleared." When she hung up, Lucia sat quietly for a long time, staring out at the waves. Justice had come, not through revenge, but through truth. That evening, as she watched Sophia and Helena playing with beach toys on the sand, Miguel joined her on the porch with a cup of tea. "You never gave up," he said. "That's something the world will remember." Lucia smiled faintly. "I didn't do it alone. If it weren't for you and Helena." Miguel raised a hand to stop her. "You're the one who made the decision to run, to fight, to protect. We just walked beside you." That night, as Sophia drifted to sleep beside her, Lucia stroked her daughter's hair and whispered, "The baby is okay now." Sophia's eyes fluttered open for a second. "He won't cry too much, right?" she mumbled. Lucia chuckled softly. "Not at all. He's going to laugh and play with you. He's going to be your best friend. And I'll teach him everything," Sophia whispered. "Like how to share toys and not break them, and how to hug right." Lucia wrapped both arms around her daughter, holding her close. For the first time in what felt like forever, her body felt light, free of the weight of fear and grief. When Sophia finally fell asleep, Lucia placed a hand over her belly and spoke softly. "My little Alvaro, I'm so ready to meet you. I promise, you'll be safe. You'll be loved. You'll grow strong and kind and free." Outside, the moon shimmered on the surface of the ocean, casting silver trails across the sand. The gentle sound of waves became the lullaby for a new beginning. In that silence, Lucia found peace, the kind of peace that comes after a war has been won, not with violence, but with courage, truth, and love. She had protected what mattered most. And now, at last, the future could begin. The morning light filtered through the white curtains of the small guest house room as Lucia held her newborn son in her arms. Alvaro had arrived the night before, healthy, strong, and beautiful. His tiny fingers wrapped instinctively around hers, and his soft breathing felt like a sacred rhythm against her chest. Sophia sat beside her on the hospital bed, eyes wide with awe, gently touching her baby brother's hand. "He's so small, Mommy," she whispered. "But he's ours, right?" Lucia smiled, her voice trembling with joy. "He's ours, my love, completely." Helena stood nearby, wiping tears from her eyes, while Miguel placed a fresh bouquet of wildflowers on the bedside table. "You did it, Lucia," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You brought him into the world with more love than any science could ever engineer." Lucia looked at them both, her heart full. "Thank you for everything. You believed in me when no one else did." Miguel smiled. "The best way to thank us is to live free, with your children. And Lucia knew that's exactly what she intended to do. A few days later, Helena burst into the room with her phone in hand. "It's official," she said, nearly breathless. "The São Paulo court just ruled. Genia Lab has been permanently shut down. All unauthorized genetic experiments suspended. Pereira and Tavares sentenced. And João, stripped of his medical license, facing time." Lucia sat in stunned silence, then slowly let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for months. "It's over," she said softly. "Really over." Helena placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Now you and your children can live without fear." That afternoon, they returned to the guest house by the sea. Antonio greeted them warmly. "Welcome home," he said. Neighbors came by with homemade sweets and quiet congratulations. Sophia showed off her brother to anyone who would look, proudly proclaiming, "I'm going to take care of him forever." That evening, as Lucia sat on the porch with Alvaro asleep in her arms and Sophia playing in the sand, Miguel and Helena joined her under the soft light of the stars. "You taught us all something, Lucia," Helena said, "that when a mother decides to protect her children, there's no force in the world that can stop her." Lucia smiled, looking out at the horizon. "Love gave me strength, and now I finally have peace." The waves crashed gently below, and with every sound a new life unfolded, one born not just from science, but from resilience, defiance, and a mother's unbreakable love.